good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are, and welcome to my Career Chronicles. This is our second series. My name is James Sudoman. As usual, I'm super excited to have you join me on this series. And today I'll be hosting Tosin, who is a product business analyst with the Scottish government. And I'm super excited for every one of us. And as we wait for Tosin to join us, I hope we have a very great time chatting together about building a career as a business analyst, what it takes, what you need, how that's going to go. I think it's going to be an exciting time. And I can't wait to chat with Tosin about navigating the business analyst career landscape, the murky waters, what you need, how to go about it, and everything in between, his personal life growing up in Nigeria, and all of that. I am super fired up for this conversation, and I'm excited for everyone joining us. Yeah, excited for everyone joining us. And it feels like Tosin is here. There we go. Hey, Tosin.
Yeah, hi, James. How are you today?
Very good. It's a great day. Like I usually say, it's another day to try again. And this time around with you. So thank you for joining us, and super excited to have you. Right before you join, I was just going through the fact that I believe it's going to be a very interesting conversation because people usually have like a bunch of questions. How do I build a career in this? What is this all about? And as a person, I feel like most times those questions or the answers are always so generic.
Mm,
So I would rather prefer personalized story. Let me get someone who is a business analyst to rather tell me how exactly did you walk your way there. I
right.
mean, different path for different people, but I think it makes sense to be able to find someone who is actually there to tell us
Hmm.
how he walked his way there. So
Yeah,
that's what the whole Career Chronicles is all about. We don't want
absolutely.
anything shrouded in some kind of secrecy. So once again, Tosin, super excited to have you join us on this live session. And welcome to everyone who is joining us live. You're welcome to say hi. You're welcome to drop your question at any point in time as we go about the conversation. We'll be taking those questions. I see there are 17 people joining us already. I know there are a lot more that will be joining us. So super excited. And let's get right into it. And Mr. Tosin, are you ready for us?
Oh, absolutely. Just to like give a heads up. So I'm feeling slightly cold, just in case my voice is not coming out clearly. Please just pardon me. It's my nose and my throat that's slightly like blocked. It's freezing here. That's what
Winter
I'd say.
issues. Yeah, I know. We understand, and I'm very hopeful we're going to have a good one. So we want to start. I love to start from the very basics, like the most elementary question. So my first question for you in this conversation is, can you tell us about growing up? How was it? Where did you grow up from? Your family growing up? Which primary school? Which secondary school? The very basic, because I mean, I don't just want people to think that, oh, where is this person from? Let's know where you're from. Where did it all start? And before it all
Mm.
got to where you are now. So that's my first question for you, Tosin.
Yeah, I mean, very, very interesting question. Thanks, James, for the invite once again. So, I'm originally from Ibadan, Oyo State in Nigeria. I think as far back as maybe when I was 5, my parents moved to Ijebu-Ode in Ogun State, and that's where I had my primary school, St. Augustine Catholic Primary School. Interestingly, in my primary one, I repeated. I remember my position used to be 31 out of 31 students, and my report card, first term, second term, third term, were always decorated in red. So I really didn't know what that red meant. I felt like I was really very consistent to have had red, all through. I didn't know I was passing from the back. So I repeated in that primary one. I think one of my teachers got hold of me. I think I can remember Mrs. Obi, really very. I think she used to beat me a lot in that primary one after my first like repetition of that first class. Then from primary four, I think things picked up for me. I started taking first position, ended up as the president of the Jet Club in that primary school. Also was the head boy, and from there I moved to Ijebu Grammar School, in Ijebu too. Literally one of the best schools in Ijebu. Again, was fortunate to be like the assistant boy in primary school. Was class captain all through my junior secondary, and then in senior school I was the senior prefect. Won a number of awards, and then I progressed to University of Lagos, where I did. First of all, I did my diploma. Finished with first class for my diploma, then progressed to like second year. Um, Ultimately, I finished with second class upper. I had a lot of struggle for my third year. Then I in 2019, 2020, I got a scholarship at the Nigerian University of Technology and Management for a 1 year postgraduate program. So there were about 60 of us selected from across Africa, where we were trained around entrepreneurship, design, management, and innovation. Then the following year, which was in 2021, I got a scholarship to the University of Edinburgh via the MasterCard scholarship. And I've been living in the UK since 2021. So that's just a bit of my story.
What a journey. What a journey. And very interestingly, I think I love the progression, all the way from Ijebu there to Lagos to the UK. And I mean, it shows the beauty of the journey, and it also shows that there is so much more out there. I'm just going to jump right to the very next part of the question. So you did in Lagos, what in University of Lagos, you studied, what did you study?
Yeah, I did petroleum and gas engineering.
That makes two of us. Thank you, Tosin. So I wanted to get some clarity there. And then in Edinburgh, you did like, I know at AUTM, that was a postgraduate diploma in
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. Then in Edinburgh, you did what?
Oh, I did entrepreneurship and innovation.
Entrepreneurship and innovation. Okay.
Yeah.
So you work as a product business analyst right now
Yeah.
for the Scottish government. So my
Mhm.
other question is, how did a combination of this education help you to in to land this role? Where did they come in? Because I mean, most times, especially for Nigerians or even Africans, we always think that there is this disconnect between what we studied in school or what we are studying in school from what we are actually doing or what we will do.
Absolutely.
So, but I want to
Absolutely.
know, how did all of that come in? Bachelor's in engineering, then this postgraduate diploma at NUTM, and then this other master's at Edinburgh. How did that contribute to making you a product business analyst?
Oh, I think it's a very interesting reflection that I'm trying to like have. But I think first of all, I would say that when it comes to business analysis, I think it's more about a disciplined approach to like doing work.
Okay.
So and that means that the way you think, the way you are able to speak with people, the way you are able to like approach solving a problem, ultimately are things that like help you to become a very good business analyst. So within our profession, there's something they call the T-shaped competence. So T-shape is more like you're drawing a T, and the very you know horizontal part of it is where they talk about having like a wider range of professional skills and personal skills. So personal
Mm-hmm.
skills like communication, problem solving, analytical skills, ability to like engage with stakeholders, and those different things that just has to do with your personality and just how well people are able to perceive you. And then the depth of that, which is the more vertical side of that, is more talking about the core competencies you need in actually being able to deliver your role as a business analyst. And that's when we're talking about methodologies and frameworks and all. So I think at the T or the horizontal part of that framework, I would say that my degree in engineering, as you know, I think you did engineering to petroleum.
Uh-huh.
Our courses, whether it's the engineering mathematics part of it, just that ability to think and solve problem, even though we are not solving mathematical problem in my role, but
Mm-hmm.
just that analytical rigor is something I think is very transferable to what I'm currently doing. In terms of the masters, reading a lot of cases, whether there are a lot of business cases that are thrown at you, reading of large volume information to be able to synthesize and say that this is the problem in this is the recommendation we are bringing out of this, or you're looking at a wide range of data sets and trying to like make sense of it, trying to extract insight and then making recommendation to the business. I think those are things that are really very helpful in the course. And of course, you know that there are a lot of group work when it comes to like whether the bachelor's program or the master's program, working in different teams. Today you are working with like three people, tomorrow you are doing engagement with like five other persons.
Mm-hmm.
Those various abilities to like work in teams, interact with individuals, being able to like execute a project you guys are working on. I think those are like transferable skills that are really very helpful within the specifics of what I'm currently doing. But in terms of the more technical part of the work, or
Mhm.
when we talk about things like maybe requirement gathering, for example, or the whole engineering part of that requirement, we're talking about things like mapping a process, or we're talking about like documentation, for example. While some of the courses in my bachelor's and master's are not directly related to that, but I think that technical skills are things that are not so hard to pick up if you devote like some few weeks or months on YouTube or meeting with individuals who are really very skilled in those. You should be able to like learn that. But the more professional or personal skills that like inherent to that, like speaking, working with people, I think that my whole of my education has really like helped me to like improve and maybe also perfect like some of those skills. And that's how I see my bachelor's program and my postgraduate program being very helpful in what I'm currently doing.
Perfect. I like that answer. And I love the whole idea of the T-shaped skill. I think about that a lot as a person. I mean, this whole idea of knowing everything about one thing and knowing
Mhm.
one thing about everything. And
Right.
it usually comes in so
Mhm.
handy. Yeah, because I mean, then this is your role, but then you have to interact with people,
Mhm.
cross-functional team and all of that. So I love that. And to think that you're able to like pick up something from your bachelor's, pick up from the postgraduate, pick up from the masters, and then the highlight is that it doesn't just stop there. I mean, like we usually say, learning does not stop in the classroom. Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's something you said here that really got me excited. The technical skills is not is something that you can pick up. You can pick up on YouTube, you can pick up on any platform, and then give yourself some months, you would have been able to sort that out. So that's like a very good take home for me. But real
Mhm.
quick, let's take a few steps backward, because
Yes.
some things might look very ambiguous. I come on your LinkedIn profile, and then I see Tosin, product business analyst, and then I go to Google and say, who is a product business analyst? Google is about to tell me all the stories on the wall. Maybe I go to Chat GPT and say, who is a or even who is a business analyst?
Mhm.
So it can feel ambiguous and maybe sometimes overwhelming and confusing. So taking a step backward, who is a business analyst? What does it mean? You know, Imagine you have to explain a business analyst to a 5-year-old. What do you
Mhm.
do? Yeah, so that's the question I want you to address.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because sometimes when you think about yourself, so what am I doing in this team, for example, and it always like vary from team to team, from company to company. But I think at a very high level, business analysts are usually, as many people would say, the sort of like link between like the business side and then like the more technical side of like things. So say for example, they are like the management side who are saying, oh, we want to be able to do this, we want to have this like functionality, we want to be able to use this system in this particular way. And then there are the guys who are able to like do what they are saying, but they don't understand what those management guys are saying in terms of how to like really translate that, whether to coding or how they would test out what they have done really makes sense. So you as the business analyst is literally speaking with the business to understand what they are trying to do and then translating that to a language that the more technical guys are able to like understand. So that's like literally what a business analyst like in the very basic and traditional sense. So you are a link between the business and then like the technical, side of things. For my own kind of role, for example, what you would see about business analysts is that there are always like different, I don't want to call it suffix in front of it. For example, somebody could say they are a digital business analyst, somebody else could say they are a technical business analyst, another could say they are product business analyst, somebody else could say that, oh, I am an insurance business analyst, another person could say I am an HR business analyst. There are always like different things, like you always find in front of that like title. In fact, there are some that are called technology business analysts too. Some are called intermediate business analysts. I think in a sense, to have an understanding of what those things mean is to look at the description. So now that you have called it this fanciful title, what exactly do you want us to be doing? So what the role entails is sometimes described in that description. So for myself, who I call myself, or I'm termed the product business analyst. So the way my company works is there are like two categories of business analysts. There are some were called the product business analyst. There are some that are also called SPM business analyst. And when I started interacting with some other team, other more wider part of the team, I see that some are also called like there's a different acronym in front of that. They are business analysts, but essentially it means that within this environment, you as a BA, this is what you are focusing on. So for
Mhm.
me as a product business analyst, for a product that we are building, what they are essentially saying is that within this product that we are building, you are working more closely with this product area, and that is what you are doing. So you are doing things around strategic analysis, you are helping to map processes, you are helping to get requirements. But when it comes to like doing things that are very, very technical, we have got technical business analysts that will do that. So technical means they are not doing much of interfacing with the business. They are
Mhm.
dealing more with the technical side of things, whether they are doing things about API, they are doing things about our various interfaces, they are writing stories, they are doing things about like testing, dealing more like with the solution architects to like understand what is being done. So it means
Mhm.
within that context, we want you to do technical things. But for you, the product B, we want you to deal more with the product area, work more with the PO, work more with product managers, work more with the scrum masters, work more with the business areas, just to understand things. But when it's becoming to become technical, just pass it on to these guys. They will pick it up from
Mhm.
there. So it's always like, just different things that the company wants you to do. In a role I worked on when I was in London, I was called an ICT business analyst. Again, I'm still a business analyst, but I was working within the ICT team. And what that meant was that when they want to like do anything that has to do with procuring off the shelf solutions, you guys are responsible for it. There are some guys that are called robotics or RPA business analysts. So it just means that any project that has to do with robotics, these guys are responsible for it. So it's more of nomenclatures, like, and then saying that within this context of this organization, this is what you would be doing. And that's sometimes what frames title. And what we have seen again in within how like BCS has like defined that role is sometimes some roles may not be called business analyst, but what they are still doing is business analysis. Some people might be called system analyst, for example, or proxy business analyst, or the proxy product owner, but they're
Mhm.
technically still like BAs. It just means that the skills that they are deploying within that context or what they are going to be doing might be somewhat slightly different from what other BAs are doing, but the fundamentals are like literally the same, just the specifics within this project or this organization is what is different. So just to recap, BA we stand as the gap between the business and like the technical team. And organizations always want you to do different things, and that is what influence like the name they give you.
Perfect.
That's
That's
it.
that's that yeah, that was a very solid answer. I mean, that's BA is like just like this bridge, between the business and
Right.
then the technical guys, maybe the software engineers and all of that. So more like you're helping the technical guys to translate maybe like the business requirements into the technical so that the technical guys can go ahead and handle maybe
Absolutely.
the engineering
Absolutely.
side of it. I like that. Real quick, let's talk about, if I want to become a business analyst, how do I do that? But I want you to take it from both your personal journey into it and then maybe another general overview into it. But before then, just shout out again to everyone who is able to join us live. And this is a very interesting conversation. And like I said, you're welcome to drop your questions at any time, and then we are going to address it as we go on towards the end of the conversation. And our conversation is very personal. It doesn't reflect any position of our employers or anybody, just our own personal conversation and our views. So, Tosin, back to you. So say I want to become a business analyst today. What is the roadmap like? First, what was it like for you? What was the journey like into that for you? Because for instance, you mentioned ICT business analyst. How did you come all the way into where you are now? And then on another general level, what's your recommendation like? Say maybe I want to become a business analyst. I talked about people. I know people do boot camps. Some other people take personal courses. Some go to schools to maybe study MBA, whatever. But let's get your own direction in that way so that people can also learn from your own journey.
Yeah, sure. So when I was working in Nigeria, I started my career in an oil and gas. My whole dream has always been to be a petroleum engineer. I wanted to make oil money, as we call it in Nigeria.
Uh-huh.
So I got an internship in an EPC firm. So it was an internship, and I was a business development is it officer or business development intern or something like that.
Yeah.
So after like 6 months, we became permanent, and then my title became a business analyst. But what I was doing was business development. I was doing some things about strategy. I was doing things about bidding, procurement,
Mhm.
some things about sourcing of goods and items for some of the clients that we're trying to like work with. So when I moved to the UK, I worked there for like a year before I then got a scholarship to the Nigerian University of Technology and Management. So when I
Mhm.
got to the UK, I spoke with someone who was like a business analyst and asked me what I would like to do after school. So I said I was working as a business analyst in Nigeria. And she was asking me, what tools do I use? I'm like, what do you mean by tools? I only know Excel and PowerPoint and Word documents. Like, what techniques do you use? I'm like, what do you mean by techniques? What framework, what methodology? I'm like, I just bid, I do strategy. I'm like, no, that is not what they do here. So she told me that if I wanted to get something, I might need to be trained professionally within the UK context. And she explained like what that would look like. So the way I went about it was there were some organizations that provide trainings. They are in the UK, they're in Canada. So they train you for 6 weeks about the theoretical aspects of business analysis. So you know all things about like theoretical aspect of that. You learn different frameworks, you learn different terminologies, you learn like the different tools that is used. Then after that 6 weeks, you then go into a practical session where there's a live project, usually a technology implementation project, where you are thrown at and then you put on the hats of a business analyst. Usually there are many of you that are being trained. You then they break down the deliverables where you know that say I'm trying to implement like a CRM project, I'm trying to implement like maybe a fraud case management system. I'm trying to do something about let's say a property management system, for example. Say
Mhm.
my company is saying they want to like, procure this, implement it. What would be your approach as a BA? So they walk us through that journey set by like deliverable by deliverable, and then they make us to be responsible for like doing all of those. So we did a project for 6 weeks, and I was able to like make sense of some of the things I'd been doing back then in Nigeria. But then I didn't gain the confidence I needed, so I stayed on with the program. Those guys were really very kind to allow me to like stay some bits longer with them. So I worked
Mhm.
on other projects. I gained more confidence. I knew that this is what this thing is like. Then they help us in preparing our CVs. They prep us for interviews. Where improving, getting better, and knew how to like apply within the job markets. So after that engagement, I hopped on an internship with a company where I was like the first BA the company was going to be hiring. So I was with them for like some months, trying to like do things I had learned in the course of my training. So I was with them. It was really very hard because there was nobody to hold me by the hands, to say this is how we do it here and all. And those guys had never worked with a BA before. So the only thing I think I did was to map processes, supported in some SOPs, look at some areas for improvement of the processes. They already had built their products, so there was not too many things to do to support in that regard. But I was just able to make sense of everything that was being done and support in some operational aspects of what they were doing. So after that internship, I had gained some bit of more confidence. Though I must say that you won't get all the confidence you need while doing the training or doing your internship. You will learn more on the job. So after that, I then started applying for job, and that was when I got my first role in London with the London Borough of Islington. I was there as an ICT business analyst. Most of the work that was being done there were around like implementation of off-the-shelf solutions. So there were some senior BAs that are really very experienced, that were very kind in doing knowledge sharing. So I
Mhm.
learned a lot from them, looked through some of the artifacts that were like had been produced by them before, tried to make sense of everything and work on a couple of like one or two projects before I then left for the current role that I'm in at the moment. So I think in terms of like the journey is find a training organization, which is like the model that is very popular at the moment. Find a training organization, do trainings with them, work on projects, get other roles, probably volunteering or even unpaid roles, just to like better put some things into practice, and then you
Mhm.
can then scale things from there. But there are other many approaches that people can also follow to becoming a BA. For example, there are many graduate programs, graduate, management program in business analysis that people could also like explore. Those ones don't necessarily involve you have too many experiences. If you can pass their aptitude test and you're able to like pass the assessment centers and then pass the interview, most likely they will bring you into the program, they will train you, and then put you on projects that will help you to become better. There are also apprenticeship program here in the UK where I think maybe for like much younger persons, I don't know much about the details of apprenticeship program that people
Mhm.
also like use as like a gateway to venture into business analysis. So that might also like be a pathway into it. So they take you, they train you, and then
Mhm.
put you on project, and then you gain confidence. For people who are also working in like slightly bigger organizations, one other pathway could be something they call secondment, where, say, for example, somebody in a particular company is going on maternity leave, and then they're trying to find an internal replacement for the person for like a period of 9 months, 6 months. That's also how some people like move into business analysis, where it's an internal recruitment, so it means that the processes are not as strenuous as them trying to hire from the outside. So sometimes they could ask you to write an essay or just express your interest to the hiring manager in house. And since you're already a staff, they will just say, okay, no worries, just come. Then they want to know about your experiences, what you've done, what you know, and then see if you might be a good fit or for that. And that's how some people I know also venture into business analysis. I think the final one is like when people do self-study, or especially if you can find a curriculum to follow and then you stick with that, that could be helpful. And speaking with practicing BAs is also a way people get into business analysis. So they know they have different sort of like work experiences, but they speak with people who are BAs, they shadow them, ask them questions, and then they're able to like see how to like venture into that. Maybe one final thing to add is when you work in a company where they are working on live projects, and then you have the opportunity to be a part of that, even if you are not a BA, but you stay closely with the BAs just to like see, oh, what are you doing, how are you doing it. That also like gives opportunity to like see what they are doing, and then be able to like find out to tailor your experiences to be able to reflect that. In my company, for example, because I work in an agile environment, sometimes I work very closely with like the product owners, the product managers, scrum masters, and some of these other delivery guy, part of the delivery team, whether like the testers, the developers, and all. There are times where I stay closely with like the product managers just to like see what are you doing, and then try to look at what they are doing, they explain it. I'm like, okay, I think I can also do this if it is a role I would like to do. So even though I've not gone for a formal training, by just shadowing those guys, observing them, asking them questions, looking at the artifacts they are producing, how they are going about their work. I think that's also like providing a very good model for me to branch into the field. But just to summarize, so the model I know that people can use to venture into business analysis is either go for training, work on projects, then look for opportunities afterwards, or shadow people, apprenticeships, graduate programs, or work in a project environment, and then get close to the BAs in those contexts. I think those will give you insight into how to like break into that business analysis field.
Cool. I like the fact that you take time to summarize the answer. Yeah, that's what we do as teachers. After you say all of that, you just summarize it, and that makes sense to me. I
Mm,
want us to talk about like working with the Scottish government, how you found your way there. But let's take a step back and talk about scholarships. A bit
yeah.
maybe off our schedule, but you look like the scholarship person, AUTM, Edinburgh, all of that scholarship. And I'm sure there were a couple of other ones in the university. I mean, back in the university, there were a bunch of them, Mobile,
Yeah.
Amami, and all of that.
Yeah.
So, and it's always exciting to see that these things happen, and then there are people we know who actually benefited from this thing, because sometimes when you look at these things, it looks like it's so far from you. But when it's happening to someone when it's happening to you as
Yeah.
a person, I think you can now say, oh, really? This thing is real. It happens. I remember back then when we were a bit more younger, you go to LinkedIn and then someone is saying, I'm happy to announce that I just got scholarship to the University of London. You're like, really? So people just stay and get scholarship to go to school, and you're imagining it. But I mean, before you know it, you are actually that person, or before you know it,
Yeah.
your friend is actually that person, and then it makes sense a bit. So I
Mm.
just want you to like, hint a bit on, how has this scholarship benefited you, and how have you been able to approach this thing? I mean, you are the boy who just came from Nigeria. I mean, you didn't need, your father is not a governor and all of those kind of things we talk about. Did you need all of that to be able to get this scholarship? What has been your approach like to be able to secure this scholarship? How did you position yourself? How did you prepare? So let's just talk about briefly about that before we jump into working with the Scottish government.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. So when I was in University of Lagos, I think the scholarship pursuit started in 200 level when I got the MTN Foundation scholarship. Yeah, I think the MTN, I think they were paying like 200,000 that time or thereabouts. So I
Mhm.
think the way we got that was there were some target department those guys were interested in. I think people in STEM fields, and then we wrote an exam, and then they selected some of the top guys for that. And yeah, I think the first thing I would say is for any undergrad probably looking at this, probably in 200 level, 100 level, one thing you can do for yourself to, like really get those opportunities is be on the lookout for them. You miss 100% of things that you probably don't know that is probably happening right now. So you want to be aware that this opportunity exists. This is the time of the year that these things are going to be open. The second thing you want to do to prep yourself is what would the assessment look like? If they're saying that they are going to test your quant skills, like your verbal skills or your current affairs or all things related to that, you really want to start preparing ahead of time because things are more very competitive right now. That you want to make sure that you don't leave things to chances. You don't want to start preparing like after you have applied or after they have invited you for a test and then you're trying to use 1 week to like crash study. So if you can begin your preparation right now, I think that's going to be very good for you. CGPA is also very important. I think most of them require that you are on 3.5 thereabouts. So you want to take care of your CGPA, but beyond CGPA is to start preparing for some of those aptitude tests so that you can be able to nail them. In terms of the scholarship opportunities outside of like the university when you are done with school, I think as at that time, before things probably became very, very competitive right now, is what I know is many of those scholarships, especially they always wanted to like be on the minimum of 2-1, except for like Chevening, that takes people even that are on finish with 2-2. I don't know if they take third class, but I think they take like 2-2 upward. And I know a number of persons who have won the scholarship with like 2-2. Writing very good essay is something that is extremely important. Very strong essays. And when they say strong essay, it means that it's an essay that is telling a very compelling story. You are playing with numbers, you are playing with your impact, you are playing with your vision, you are playing with how you want to like change the world or change your community or change your country when you're done. You are playing with how specific aspect of the courses you are mentioning specific names in the courses, how they will change your thinking, how they will help you to create a change in the world. You are mentioning professors, you are mentioning specific things in your application that will show that you're not a lazy person. Right, knowing how to do all of that, I think is something that will give you advantage. So this one that brought me, first of all, the scholarship I got in Nigeria, they were looking for people with like very strong track record of leadership. So, and what that means is that while you're in the university at the moment, or even just if you have finished school, you've not done so much, is to be involved in a lot of extracurricular activity. So you're taking leadership in somewhere, whether you are the president, you are the vice, or you are the academic sec, or you are a volunteer. Make sure you are at the forefront. You are doing something. You are part of something big. You are documenting exactly what you are doing, reflecting about those experiences, and tying them to like a bigger goal, and then able to connect the dots. I think not to like overstretch this. One thing I used to do then, when I started like a hunting for scholarship is I always like go on YouTube to like listen to people share like their stories. So I don't look for people who tell you study, read. I look for people who are telling specific things to write. So for example, if you're saying that maybe you finished in first class, people who would tell you that you need to put a context to that first class. Oh, there were just three of us with first class. I was the first person or the second person, maybe in the history of the department, blah, blah, blah. So you are putting context around what you are saying. Even if you finish with 2-1, you're not just saying I finished with 4.0, you're probably saying I finished with 80%. That makes me among the top 5%, maybe in my class or in the whole department. They are teaching you to put context. So they are mentioning specific aspects of the application that is like giving it that advantage. So I used to listen to those guys. I used to go online to read essays too. So I just type scholarship essays. I can read a lot of them, paying attention to how they are using the words and how they are stringing all of their experiences together to give an advantage. So I think just to summarize is there are a lot of opportunities, whether at the undergraduate level or the postgrad level. Be aware of them, know what time of the year they come out, listen to people who share their experiences, not just people talking at a very high level, but people who can sometimes go into the low level detail and bring out insights. I shared some of my essays online on my LinkedIn, and I've met with people who are also very fortunate or very kind to also share their essays on their on their LinkedIn and on their blog posts and even on YouTube too that you could also search. So look for those guys. And beyond that, search for essays online. You'll see a lot of them, people telling you what they did in their essays that gave an advantage. But writing strong essays is a must, and then knowing how to pass your interview when that time comes. So sometimes it will give you a lot of competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. I mean, something very interesting about what you said was when you talked about, giving context to what you're doing, giving context to who you are, which is actually more like the goal of this My Career Chronicles. Because
Mhm.
I mean, it's easy for me to go to LinkedIn and look at Tosin and see that, oh, Tosin is working with the Scottish government as a product business analyst. And that's all about it. But to every story, there is an inside story, and that
Mm,
inside story is not going to be put on
absolutely.
LinkedIn. You may
Yeah.
not necessarily see it on LinkedIn, but
Mm,
people who leverage platforms like these, YouTube, and other platforms to really give you like the inside story, which in this case might be the context. I think I love those people too. So that's a big take home for me.
yeah.
Let's talk about working with the Scottish government as a business analyst. What is it like? Oh, no, not what is it like. Let's talk about how did you even get there? Yeah,
Mm.
because I'm like, oh, I know Tosin from Ibadan, or is it not Tosin? I met in Lagos. How did Tosin, get to work with the Scottish government? Or maybe his grandfather was maybe working with the Scottish government before his uncle, his uncle, So these are like some of the curiosities people might be thinking,
Mm,
how did Tosin get to work with the Scottish government?
yeah.
Did he need to know someone that knows some, all of those kind of
Mm,
things. And I
yeah.
love to be very, very practical. So which is why we call it My Career Chronicles. How is
Yeah.
it like really, not just the
Yeah.
imagined thing.
So
So
I'll, I'll,
how
I'll,
is it
I'll
like?
I'll tell the whole truth. So there was a girl I saw on Instagram. I think I like that girl. Very beautiful. I wanted to. This is me being very sincere. I don't want to lie to you guys.
Uh-huh.
Very, very beautiful girl. I wanted to just talk to her. That time I think I was single. Just wanted a very. I like the girl in a nutshell. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know how to really chat with her. So I just followed her, and then I was looking. Then one day I just summoned courage, and then I chatted. And then she was asking me about things about my career. I said, "Oh, yeah. I mean, I am a business analyst. I'm looking for roles around business analysis, uh, things like that." So she sent me. So she studied at, I think, University of Glasgow. Then she sent me a link from an university portal. I think no universities in the UK, they have like a career sort of like profile where they share opportunities. And she
Mm-hmm.
sent me a link for a project analyst role with the Scottish government that if I could apply for it. I said, yes, sure. And because if you like somebody, you want to show, yes, I'm serious. So I applied for that job. And then while applying, after I applied, I think we wrote about 4 essays, which I shared on my LinkedIn already, my responses to those essays. But after I submitted, I now said, let me check if they have other roles. And I saw business analyst. So, and then I applied for that one too. So what they were asking for is literally the same essay. I just condensed the essay into like a cover letter. Then I just applied for it. The two of them called me for interview. So the project analyst, first of all, called me for interview, and then I hadn't done anything about project analyst role before, but they were impressed with my essays, and then they called me for an interview. So I did what I thought was my best, but they told me I scored 2 over 5 in each of the questions, but they gave me feedback on where I did things wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
because I still remembered all the questions they asked me, so I noted them down, and then I used those ones to prepare for my business analyst one. And then I passed down, and then I got like the offer. I think the point I'm just trying to emphasize is go on Instagram, look for a fine girl.
If you miss the girl, don't miss the role.
Let the girl set the job, and then you can apply. But I think the most serious part of that is I think it came like sort of like coincidence in sort of some ways, but also me being also very diligent. So she sent me something. I went ahead to look for other opportunities that are available there.
Mm-hmm.
I condensed what I had written because if I had written a shabby essay in the first two of them, so I did my best, and then the skill set I had before really came into place. Like writing an essay, like I mentioned, is something that gives a lot of advantage. We know how to write well. So writing that essay was really helpful. And then when I got invited for interview, I was asked to make a presentation, and I did my best in that presentation. That time, I'm not sure there was already ChatGPT. I think that was 2022. Maybe it was about I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
So but my presentation was majorly from my head. I did everything from my head. But if I knew that if there was ChatGPT like the way it is now, maybe I would have leveraged it to like create something better and more compelling. But I did everything with the skill set I had. They were really very impressed, and that's how I got like the role. And by the way, I got another role that I'm going to be starting next month by God's grace. It's a senior BA role, like with another government organization here in the UK. But yeah, it all boils down to writing good essays, leveraging your
Mhm.
experiences, and then like showing up for those interviews.
There we go. Guys, if you miss the girl, don't miss the role. And also, if you go on Instagram and you don't have fine pictures to share, at least, talk about your career. So Instagram is not just for fine pictures. You never know. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And it also shows that there is always an opportunity everywhere and
Yeah,
anywhere. It's all about what you are looking for. You
yeah,
understand? So
absolutely.
if there's something you are looking for, you can see it when,
Right.
whatever the platform is. And let's talk about platforms now that we are here. There are a bunch of platforms, Facebook, especially social media, LinkedIn, YouTube. There are a bunch of them, but let's tailor it down to career wise. So I know you're very active on LinkedIn and you keep talking about it. Yeah, guys, this is someone you have to follow if you've not done that already. How have you leveraged platform or how has these platforms help you to like start grow your career as a business analyst? LinkedIn, maybe Twitter. I mean, I don't know the one you use most, but the point is, how has these platforms helped you to start and grow your career, and how do you think every other person can leverage on this platform to like grow their business analyst career or any other career as it were like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I use more of LinkedIn for business analysis related things. My
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and Facebook are more of me telling my other stories of myself, like my traveling story. I like to travel, been to a couple of countries. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do. I don't do anything BA on those platforms. But in terms of how I use those ones, I think first of all is in connecting with people who are like knowledge experts. There are a lot of people who are sharing very helpful content on like LinkedIn that you probably need to follow. I would say that on the average, you see a number of content that are really very helpful. See people talking about different nuances of their roles, challenges they are facing. And then I think those are like things that are very helpful for me. Um, I've also used LinkedIn for, like I mentioned, connecting. I remember one of the interviews I had. I was really very fortunate to meet people who told me the questions I will be asked in some of those interviews that I've done. And the questions I was asked weren't too far fetched from that. And I'm just wondering if I had not met these guys, I maybe I would have gotten the role. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten them. I wouldn't know. But
Mm-hmm.
they told me the specific things that they would drill me on. I should prepare for them, and I had responses to them, and those were really very instrumental in me getting those roles. I've also met people who are like encouragers on those platforms too. People who like really love what you're doing. I know there's something about encouragement that gives
Mm-hmm.
you confidence that I can do more. So, for example, people will tell you, I think you should be looking at the next step in your career right now, just based on how they perceive some of the content you are rolling out. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the ways I use LinkedIn too. Currently, I co-founded an organization called BSphere, but the
Mm-hmm.
person we are working together also came as a result of some of those online interactions, and some of the clients we've worked with, they came from those like LinkedIn too. So they perceive that this is a knowledge expert, somebody who had gone through the struggles that they are currently going through and will be able to relate to their own stories. So I get clients from LinkedIn, get collaborators, and also get a lot of invitations to come and speak in platforms and places too through LinkedIn. Just by being visible, showing up, people think that this person knows something and they can share something. Yesterday, I was on a platform with like two people with over 25 years of industry experience. This is me with less than 5 years being asked to join them to share my experiences. So
Mm-hmm.
showing up, being visible brings you those opportunities. There are also some places I do coaching services where they pay me for my time. Those also like came from LinkedIn just as a result of being very visible. I think that for someone who is starting off their career, a number of ways to use LinkedIn. First of all, set up job alerts on LinkedIn. A lot of BA jobs I see, on LinkedIn just by setting up alerts. We are based in the UK, for example, do something for England, for Scotland, Wales, or Ireland, and you'll see a lot of opportunities. More recently, I started looking at the US and I set up a lot for US. I see a lot of jobs. I've just not been applying for any of them for like from some various reasons that are more personal to me. But
Mhm.
it's a place to see a lot of jobs. Secondly, is that connect with people. If you have a case you are working on, an interview you are preparing for, that's a platform to get people will be very helpful. It's also a platform for visibility. If you got thought to share, whether something philosophical or something technical or something that is just like your own personal like ruminations, LinkedIn is a very good place to get people. And those are like the ways I use them for getting clients, interacting with professionals, being invited to platforms, or being invited to be part of something and being paid for them.
Cool. And bonus for everyone watching this right now, or whenever you watch this, go follow BS Fair on LinkedIn. Yeah,
Thank you.
they put out like very, very solid, very, very valuable content out there, and not just for BA. Also, like this is something that you can also extrapolate into like any other career. That's the interesting thing about any career. You can always extrapolate from one career into whatever career you're on, and then just follow that path. Okay, we are trying to round this up real quick. And if you have any question, put it out there. We're going to address it. And what's the future of BA? Real quick, what do you see as the future of BA, especially in this age of AI? Everyone is talking about AI now and all of
Yeah,
that, and
yeah,
people are scared for their career. What are you seeing? What are your thoughts?
yeah. It's interesting you're asking this. I was watching a video yesterday, and somebody was talking about sharing a use case for AI, and how that is going to either help business analysts, if you look at it from the lens of supporting BAs, or some people could look at it from the lens of negatively impacting BAs. So this was like a guy, a business analyst, that was trying to like investigate why sales were where there were a lot of like sales cancellation within, well, it was looking at some period of like time, maybe from like February to like December of a particular year, that the number of sales cancellation was increasing. It was trying to understand why. So he asked the AI, so like what is the issue? Said the number of sales cancellation is increasing, has been increasing from February to like December. And then he asked him, could you do a root cause analysis? And then he generated a root cause analysis in a fishbone diagram sort of like ways. So it mentioned all of those things. Then the guy asked that, can you remove things that are beyond our company's control? Then it removed them, it remains some things. And then it asks it, can you remove things that were already implemented in the previous years? It's now left like two things. So something was operational, another thing was something around like policies. So that policy now started asking, could you tell me the business rules that are responsible for some of these part of like the policy constraints that are impacting these things? Generated that particular business rule, then it asks it to link it to the process flow of that. And then we saw the process flow. Then started asking like why they design it this way. So it asked it for like a comparative analysis in some ways. So they did some comparative analysis. All of this was happening in instance. So as it was mentioning the prompt he wanted or generating the result, and then it was able to niche down that this is why this is there. So it asked it to do an experiment. Can we test the next maybe 100 like sales, but remove this particular business rule? Let's see what the impact of that would be. It removed that business rule, it generated the result, and so it told it to generate a report, generated a report that actually this business rule is not necessary. Now ask is that if you want to change this, what will be the impact? It said there's no impact, and then it generated something like pros and cons, and then they made a decision right there and there. I think if I'm probably going to like scale that up in terms of like the business of the future of business analysis, I see like AI is like coming more and more into play, and that would mean that as for us as BAs, we need to become skilled in how to use this AI.
Mhm.
I stumbled on one some days ago called Pace AI. It's a platform that can map processes for you just by feeding it with the information. It generates your process flow for you, whether in swim lanes or in flow charts immediately. And that means that as a BA, you need to be familiar with how all of these things are working. I think that's one of the futures of BA that I see. AI is going to impact our work, but you need to know how to use this AI to like deliver on your roles. I also see more opportunities coming up, whether opportunities in robotics or but they may not necessarily be called business analysts in terms of the title, but a number of things you'll be doing, we have a lot of analysis in them that I think your skill sets as a BA are going to like really be very, very helpful and hands-on when it comes to like them. Maybe there's some other things are also like involved. For example, might also like be a time for you to learn what they call FAC, which is like you being more flexible, you being more like, being more agile and, being able to like blend into things more quickly. and finding a way to always constantly qualify yourself, whether through certifications, through like industry learning. You are learning what is the new thing that is happening. For example, people have been talking a lot about prompt engineering within the space of AI. So you want to really know like what does this mean and how can I better improve myself within this space. I think just to like summarize, I mean, I know that a lot of discussions are going on in terms of that future of BA and how AI is impacting that or what the future looks like. But I think more opportunities will come, but it will come for people who are able to like ride on that wave, able to take leadership and agency of their career, who constantly seek opportunities to learn, opportunity to be aware of what's going on in that curve, and being part of people who are leading the change as opposed to people that's catching like unawares. That's my thoughts about that.
Good deal. Yeah, AI has come to stay, and we have to work with it. It's
Mm.
our present reality, so we don't have to
Right.
shy away from it. We have to work with it. And the very last one, and the last one, and the last one before the very last one. What's your any final thoughts, word of advice to people starting out? Building their career. What's your final thought, word of advice, recommendation? Let's just hear
Mm.
you out, Tosin, as a round up.
Yeah, I mean, the couple of advice is like we always like give people starting out. First of all, is you won't get all the confidence you need before you start. Your confidence will grow per project you work on, by the time you also like spend more and more time in this like in that space. So that means that don't say, uh, I will study for 6 months first, and after I've gained more confidence, I'll start. That 6 month time will have gone. More and more people will be looking for the same kind of opportunities you're looking at. I think you know enough just right now, and you can just start seeking those opportunities. Imposter syndrome is really very real, and there are two ways to look at imposter syndrome, whether it's something that's telling you about skills deficit that you have and you need to like go for those skills, or something that's really trying to tell you you're not good enough, this is not for you, that you should give up. If it's something telling you you have skills deficits you need to improve on, definitely embrace it. But if it's something that's telling you you're not good enough, you can't do this, it's a lie, you need to find a way to shut it down. Almost all the Bs I've spoken with, whether the senior, the principals, they've all had that moment where they doubted themselves, but they didn't allow it to negatively affect them from taking actions, but rather they allowed it to fuel themselves. So take actions. You know enough. You are good enough. You will learn more on the job. Secondly, is that the space is also becoming very saturated and competitive. There are a lot of organizations that are shunning out BAs, training a lot of BAs, telling them opportunities are there. It is not that there are no opportunities, but then it means that you need to like be more competitive and your candidature needs to be very strong, and really as strong as those of other people. So if you can take certification, that's fine, go for it. Or if you can get internships or volunteering experiences, go for it. If you need to do a couple of trainings here and there, just to get practical experiences and hone your confidence, go for it. Anything you do that will like help you improve your confidence is really very important. Thirdly, is that for myself particularly, I am beginning to look at fields beyond just business analysis. And that's because there are many career pathways that lead to happiness. Business analysis is just one of them. So it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be BA or nothing. There are a lot of other careers that can give you fulfillment. So explore them, see what you can get from them. And then while you are in those ones, if you are really still keen on BA, you can then strategically try to map your way into it. But don't tie your hand that you won't apply for anything else but BA and then allow the years to like watch the years go out of your hands, and then you're filled with regrets that you could have done things differently. So explore a lot of options. And lastly is that people talk about mentorship and coaching, but sometimes people think it is overrated, but sometimes it is very underrated. There are a lot of people you need to talk to that can help you reframe how you are seeing things, reframe how you are thinking about things, and really reassure you that nothing is wrong with you, like just a normal challenge of the market. So if you can get a mentor, somebody to talk with every month or somebody to talk with every 2 weeks, if you need to pay them or they want to do it for you pro bono, get somebody that you're speaking with that's more experienced than you, and they can help you reframe things even when you're having challenges or some setbacks, and they can tell you that you need to stay at this. So certifications, if possible, the market is competitive. You need to be aware of that. You are good enough. Just put imposter syndrome in perspective. And I think with that, everything is going to work out really very well for you.
And that was a bang. Yeah. That was a very good way to land. And shout out to you, Tosin, and everyone who joined us. I really appreciate the fact that you made our time to join me on this chat. And this is a very important chart. I know it's very valuable to people out there. People are going to need this today and even in the years and months and
Yeah.
days to come. So thank you very much, Tosin, for joining us. And like we always end here, tea or coffee?
I think I'm a tea guy.
Tea. All right. And with that, we close it on My Career Chronicles for today, episode 2. Thank you, Tosin, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And you have a very beautiful weekend and a great new year ahead. Bye, guys.
All right, bye. Thank you, James.
All
Yes.
right, sir.